Hello. Today I wanted to talk to you about not just a little piece of astrology, because I think I have a lot of people in my audience who are looking at their own birth charts for the first time, maybe even. There are probably people out there that know a lot more about astrology, but for the people that might want to venture into it, I thought I might give you a place to begin. So what you're going to want to do in order to see your birth chart is go to a website where they have a birth chart calculator, and you will be able to see it. You might not know anything about what you're looking at. It might be just completely like foreign to you. You're like, I don't know what I'm looking at. And that's how we all feel when we begin. You're not alone. My recommendation is to use astro.com. Astro.com allows you to keep 100 charts in your Astro data bank for free. This is mainly what I use to draw up a chart for a client when I am reading a chart, because I stick to what I know. And I like that website. It allows me to use multiple charts. It allows me to see so many different facets of astrology that it is, to me, the most valuable as you are becoming more knowledgeable about this science of light. Today I'm going to be talking to you about, where do you begin when you're looking at your birth chart and you see it. On the left side of the chart, you're going to see two letters that say AC, capital letters, AC. This is your ascendant. And this represents the star that was rising in the east at the time you were born. It changes every 2 to 2.5 hours. And that's why it's very important to know your time of birth. Your time of birth, the time itself, is Lord of astrology. Saturn rules time. So this is the Lord of astrology. We need it in order to understand where you begin, where the impact begins. Because the impact, the first energy you feel when you are coming out of your mother, the heavens. And so this is a snapshot of what was going on in the sky from Earth's perspective at the time of your birth. So the first house, your ascendant, this is your first house cusp. And the sign that is located there, along with the degree and the minutes, matter. This house is the birth. It's the beginning. This is going to be the house that represents your self-identity, your physical appearance. And it is also how you as an individual interact with the world. And this is an important house to interpret, and you should start here when you want to understand more about who you are. Because these angular houses, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, are the most crucial. They're the directions. They are the directions. And they impact us in a very sensitive way, in very profound and big ways. The 1st being the self, the 7th being everything that is outside of the self. The 4th is the home, the heart, the mother, who we were as children in our family, how we were perceived and how we behaved, and what our position, our nature, our nurture conditioned us to be, found in the fourth house. Upward from the fourth is the 10th. The 10th is associated with our career, with our public persona. It is the authority we have in this realm, in the public. It is about it can be about your father as well. We see a lot of people in the entertainment industry, for example, people who are in the spotlight, right? They will have usually planets hovering around their 10th house cusp, around that midheaven, the MC, because it is a signify, especially a benefics. We're looking for the benefic planets like Jupiter, for example, to be hovering around that midheaven, because Jupiter is going to expand what it touches, right? So the public persona is then kind of put on a platform, a very large platform, to be seen by sometimes the world at large. So we are looking at very important aspects of our human lives here with these angles. And that's why they are very important for us to discuss and to learn about. And it's where you want to go first. Because to me, you really don't need to go in any specific order. It's all up to you. But the way that our brains work, I kind of have an idea of how I would instruct a person to begin, because I have to start with things that are easily digestible. And I have to practice it. Which means for me, when I learn something, I actually have to speak with somebody about it and say the thing that I learned in order for it to be integrated and for me to absorb it fully in my brain. So I used to talk about astrology all the time. And people didn't know what I was talking about half the time, but I needed to talk about it because it meant something to me, and it made me feel alive, and it made me understand and fully incorporate the science into my brain, right? But we all have different ways of absorbing information, and some brains just work faster and differently than others. And that's totally okay. So I started with learning about the signs themselves. I got this book when I was 12, and it was called The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need. And that's where I began. That's where I began my journey. So I learned about the signs. I learned about, and they had all the tables in the back of the book, so I could look up all of my, this was before there were computers that I could use. We didn't have a computer. So they had the tables at the back so I could look up my sun sign and my moon sign and Mercury and Venus and Mars and all the things. Even some asteroids like Chiron. So I started with the easy stuff, learning about the signs, learning about their rulers, the planets that rule those signs, and understanding where we get that from in Greek mythology. Because tropical zodiac or Western astrology is based a lot on Greek mythology. So there will be a lot of that comes up in in sometimes in interpretations, but also just in learning it. In Eastern astrology, they study Jyotish. This is a different type of astrology, but it is also a lot older, and I love it. I honor it. I appreciate it. It is very important. It is called Vedic astrology or Jyotish. Jyotish is a Sanskrit word for the science of light. That is what we practice. So the impact of the energies in the sky, what do they mean? How do they affect us? And yeah, so we have a separate side for people who are interested in Vedic astrology. Usually we practice one and not the other, but sometimes there are people that do both, and those are geniuses. I know enough about Vedic astrology that I can be okay with having a casual conversation about it, but I'm not somebody who is completely learned in that. Okay, I chose Western astrology, tropical zodiac, and that's because that's what I was introduced to first. So I started there with that book, just getting a book where you have like a lot of different subjects all in one place, like topics. You go from the signs, then to the planets, to the aspects, right? The houses probably after. Houses are very important. Houses are the areas of life. So if you have a planet, okay, the sign it's in. So we have the planet and what the planet represents and means in a sign. Okay, so that means it's operating in a specific way, and it's operating it with, if it's whatever house it is in, determines where the focus of that energy is going, where it's happening, where that energy is happening in your life. It's very important to understand all of that, but to learn it as best as you can, and then you will be able to begin to interpret your chart, and you will be able to begin to understand this your chart broken down, right? And then you're going to start to understand the connections between things, the connections between the planets or aspects, right? That's when it becomes basically geometry. Because we look at the separation between planets to determine if they are having some kind of relationship with one another. And we can see and understand a lot more of how intricate, and how we can see more detail, and we gain a greater understanding of why we operate a certain way when we're seeing the relationships between the planets in our chart and what they are, what that means, and how that affects us, right? And we can see configurations like a grand trine. What is a grand trine? I have a grand trine in my chart. It's in the air signs, in the air houses, but not orderly. I have Venus in the sign of Libra at 1 degree. And in the sign of Libra in the 3rd house. So that's an air house. That's the Mercury Gemini house. I have my moon in Aquarius at 0 degrees in the 7th, which is Libra's house, another air. And then the corresponding asteroid, Chiron, in Gemini, 1 degree. In the 11th, Aquarius house. And people, I'm just going to give you this configuration. Because, as an example, it's probably easier to understand. So we are looking at something that is beneficial to us. Grand trines show a mastery. But it's sometimes this natural gift that you're born with, like a talent that you have, a capability that you have, that is it comes so easy and naturally to you that a lot of people sleep on it. People be sleeping on their trines, and they rest on their laurels, so to speak. But it shows a place where you will have such an effective impact should you do anything in the field of whatever it is, wherever that trine, whatever it rules, whatever element it's in, all the things, right? So for me, it's communication. It's communication. It's understanding. It's emotional because it involves the moon. It's artistic and creative because it involves Venus. And it is also the healer of wounds, because it involves Chiron. So, in a way, one could say this is why my voice sounds the way that it does. Self-expression. Expression to everything outside of me, all the people outside of me, the world outside of me. And then, of course, the 11th, friends, connections, networking. It's also the house of liberation. So, in a way, this is what I'm doing with my life. I'm using my grand air trine in air houses to communicate. This is what I do for a living. And I'm able to access things. But there are other components in my chart that emphasize the trine, that will give that will bolster it, that will move it upward, or give it just more support, right? It's more support. Like I had to come to terms with this, but I kind of love now that I have Neptune in the 6th house in the sign of Sagittarius. So it's very mutable. Okay. This is the ideas portion of me, but this is also how I work, because the 6th house is our daily work. It's organization and detail, but it's also about our kind of like operations, how we do things. So Neptune in the 6th, no boundaries. Neptune is without boundaries. It's the non-physical reality. So I am literally working with the non-physical reality all the time, but it does not have any start or stop. It is limitless, and I cannot put any kind of conditions upon it, because that's not how that fluidity works. I have to allow it to flow. So it can be difficult for me to be regimented when it comes to the work that I do. It can be difficult for me to work on a specific day when it just does not feel right energetically. So it's like having a schedule. I can't do that. It's kind of like, that's one of the reasons why I couldn't really pursue this, because I didn't know how. And I didn't know how because I knew that I needed to work in a certain way. And like, where's that going to be accepted? Where is, that seems impossible, right? But hey, I found it. I found my niche. I found my little nook on the internet. But there's a little bit more of a nuance. What you have to understand is that when you look at your chart and you are breaking it down, okay, you're going to see a lot of things about yourself, and some of those things might be unhealthy traits, and some of them might be healthy. Because each aspect in your chart, no matter what it is, can have unhealthy traits, will have unhealthy traits and healthy traits. The interesting thing about it, though, is that those opposite traits cannot occupy the same space. You are either one or the other, because you can't be both at the same time. So, it's an interesting thing to break that down too. It's all, for me, astrology is just a better understanding for me of myself and the world and the people around me. And it really helped me to better understand people when I was extremely shy. I didn't like interacting with people if I didn't have to, like I had to, a lot. And there were times where I wanted to, of course, but for me, it's like I wanted a way to understand people, not to judge them, but to just know how they operate. So I would know, and I would be able to work with them in a conducive and peaceful way. So, yeah, it's all for better understanding. But this is kind of what I just wanted to touch on. 1st, 4th, 7th, 10th. These are important. Look and see if there are any planets there in your chart. What signs are those what signs are on the cusps of those houses? That's also very important. All of it is. And then once you start to break things down as individual items, you will then be able to interpret your chart as a whole. This is why astrologers do what they do, because you can go on to astrology.com and read all the blurbs about having like Mars in Cancer or whatever, and then you can go and you can read about it. But the thing about those sites is that they're not connecting anything. And if they do, it's still very general. And it doesn't take into account all of the other aspects that are happening at the same time as that one. So still, it's individualizing everything. It's taking things and breaking it down. So that's why it's important to speak to an astrologer if you're interested in having your chart interpreted and having maybe just to have an overview of who you are and why. And I think it's an important thing to do. it's not for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's perfectly fine. That's so good. It's fine. That's a choice. That's everybody has that choice. This is a lot of fun, though. This is a lot of fun. Astrology is never ending. We're always going to be learning more and more and more. And I do feel that with this new age that we have entered into, and especially with Pluto entering the sign of the sign of Aquarius, we are going to be changing the format of astrology in very big, fundamental ways. You watch. Over the next decade, things are just going to be changing. Because astrology was created by the patriarchy. It was the boys' club that created it. So we need to understand that is being dismantled right now. The patriarchy is being dismantled. So we are going to see changes in very many fields across the board. And I do believe astrology is one of them. Aquarius is outer space, the sky, the heavens, right? UFOs, aliens. It's the best. So we're going to be seeing a lot of that change, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. I'll be right there. So I hope this helped you guys, and if you have any questions, definitely leave them in the comments, and I will get to them. And it's so exciting to answer your questions. I love it. And I will speak to you guys soon. I'm sending you so much love now and always.